Are you thinking about moving to Washington State? Well, today I got a video on the top 10 things Washingtonians don't tell you about living in Western Washington. And if you stick around to the end, the last two things, I bet you will be very surprising to you. My name's Brandon Stevens. I'm with Premier Homes Northwest, eXp Realty. And every week we bring you a video right here about Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater, Washington. And if this is your first time to the channel, I wanted to remind you to like, subscribe so you can get all those notifications about every time we drop a video. We cover everything in the Olympia-Lacey and Tumwater area and all surrounding areas, and we are here to drop another video today about the top 10 things that you may not know about Washington State, living on the western side of the mountains. So let's get into the video right now. So definitely the number one thing you probably hear about living in Western Washington is the politics. And you know, when you think of Washington State, what comes to mind? The lush green landscapes, the towering mountains, the vibrant cities, and yes, the politics. Yes, the politics. For many, Washington is synonymous with progressivism, liberalism, and all this left-leaning politics. And hey, I get it. It's a bit daunting, especially if you're really not into that kind of vibe. But here's the thing. Washington is so much more than just its political reputation. The news media is going to have you believe that it's some liberal sanctuary, and I'm sure you can plug your own hot button topic in. And certainly there are aspects of truth in most political criticisms. And sure, we've got our own fair share of progressive values here, but that often gets lost in the noise. It's an incredible sense of community and a welcoming spirit and the genuine care for our neighbors, regardless of their political beliefs right here in Washington. So despite what the news media tells you about Washington, it isn't about being liberal or conservative. It's actually about being inclusive, compassionate, and open-minded. And yeah, there is some focus on social justice, environmental sustainability, and equal rights for all, but Washington also values diversity of thought, respectful discourse, and finding some common grounds. So if anyone out there is hesitant about moving to Washington because of the liberal politics, I get it, but I want to reassure you, yes, there are progressive values here, but we're also welcoming. We're not here to judge or alienate. We're actually here to embrace and to learn and to grow together as a community despite political differences. And actually, you might be surprised to find that beneath the surface, there's a lot more that unites us than divides us. So whether you're a staunch conservative, a diehard liberal, there's a place for you here in Western Washington, because at the end of the day, it's not about red or blue. And for number 2 on our list, it's probably going to be the elephant in the room if you're considering looking into Washington and moving to Western Washington. It's weather, and oh boy, do we have a lot to say about it. Let's dive into the topic of weather. Now, if you're considering a move to Washington, chances are you've heard about our reputation for rain, and while it's not entirely unfounded, we do get our fair share of rain, no doubt about it. But here's the thing, it's not all doom and gloom. You see, what sets our rainy weather apart is it's kind of more of a gentle, almost poetic quality. It's not this torrential downpour or relentless storms over and over. Instead, it's going to be more like a delicate mist. It's got a soothing rhythm. It kind of lulls you into this state of tranquility. The change of the seasons we actually look forward to. Believe it or not, we actually find a certain beauty to it, the way the clouds part to reveal a nice rainbow. Plus, we have our lush green landscapes. It wouldn't be possible if we didn't have all that nourishing rain. But here's the kicker, despite our reputation for rain, we actually have 4 distinct seasons right here in Western Washington. The change of the seasons is always something we look forward to. In the fall, we look forward to hot apple cider, pumpkin spice lattes, pumpkin patches, the leaves changing color on the maples. It's absolutely a gorgeous place. Winter brings this crisp, cool air, and we enjoy warm nights inside or a winter evening walk. We can go snow skiing in the mountains just an hour away or so. Spring brings along the beautiful cherry blossoms and lukewarm sunny days that get scattered in between, reminding you summer's close, and boy, is summer to die for, because anybody who's experienced a summer in the Pacific Northwest often say they never want to leave. And here's another thing that might surprise you. Natural disasters like tornadoes, hurricanes, snowstorms, they're pretty much unheard of around these parts. And so while we do get a bit of rain, we're spared from those more extreme weather events that are going to plague other regions like the Midwest, the South, Texas, and those areas. So if you're worried about rainy weather dampening your spirits, I wouldn't worry too much. Here in Washington, we embrace the rain as just another part of our unique charm, and who knows, you might even find yourself falling in love with it too. For number 3 on our list, you're probably wondering what it's like with the cost of living. And first up, I want to cover groceries. And while groceries can vary depending on your shopping habits or dietary preferences, you're going to probably find that the prices in Olympia are generally compared to the national average on par. Shopping at local farmers markets and co-ops can often save you some money while supporting local growers and producers. Like many parts of the country, property taxes in Olympia can be a significant expense for homeowners. Washington State offers several exemption and relief programs for eligible residents, including senior exemptions, veterans, and individuals with disabilities, helping kind of mitigate the impact of property taxes for those that need it most. Now, gas taxes, on the other hand, do play a significant role in determining the overall cost of fuel for residents. And yes, currently Washington has one of the highest gas tax rates in the nation, primarily due to the fact that state and local taxes imposed on gasoline sales. These taxes are designed to fund various transportation projects, including road maintenance, bridge repairs, public transportation initiatives. And as of this video, the price per gallon with no loyalty discount at like a grocery store or something is going to run you around $4.20 a gallon. So overall, the combined impact of state and federal taxes does have quite a bit of an impact on gasoline. Also, Washington is spearheading a push for electric vehicles, including a waiver of sales tax on the purchase of a used electric vehicle, but you can also expect to pay a slightly higher registration cost per year than those with a traditional gas-powered car. Another big expense if you're living in Western Washington is going to be your utility costs, including electricity and gas. And while energy prices do fluctuate over time, residents of Olympia enjoy relatively stable utility rates compared to the other parts of the country. However, recent rate increases from providers like Puget Sound Energy have put the pressure on household budgets. This has prompted many homeowners to explore alternative energy sources like solar, and that's going to reduce their reliance on traditional utilities. These can be helpful because energy rates are expected to go up about 15% on an annual increase basis over the next 5 years. And another cost you also have to take into consideration are water, sewer, and garbage fees. And depending on the time of year, those fluctuate. One thing you have to keep in mind is there's still many homes in Washington that are actually on septic systems or individual wells. So if you end up in one of those, that's definitely going to mitigate the cost, because the cost to own a septic system and your individual well cuts out the water and the sewer part of the utility bill. And that can end up saving you hundreds of dollars a month on average. So while we're talking about alternative energy, Washington State does offer generous incentives and rebates for homeowners who want to invest in solar power systems. So making it easier and more affordable to go green while you're saving money on electricity bills in the long run. And we also don't experience things like rolling blackouts. And if there are some severe weather power outages, it's often for a very short time, and it's not going to be as many as places like the Midwest or in Texas. All right, so talking some more about money, or in this case, dollars and cents, definitely housing is going to play a big factor into your overall cost of living here in Western Washington. And I don't want to sugarcoat it. It definitely can be a little bit more steep, especially in big cities like Seattle. So if you've been eyeing a move to the Pacific Northwest, you've probably heard whispers about the cost of housing. And yes, a place like Seattle that's got a booming tech industry and an urban vibe can be a bit pricey. We have to dive deeper into the nitty-gritty of the costs of living here in Washington State. It's a topic that can be a bit intimidating, especially if you're considering making a move to this beautiful corner of the country. And so let's go ahead and break it down. When we're talking about the cost of living, we're talking about more than just groceries, right? We're talking about everything in between, and all these things certainly have significant factors to the cost of living. We're talking about the price of utilities, transportation, healthcare, and even entertainment, and it all adds up. But let's really dive deep into housing. In major cities like Seattle, the cost of rent's going to be downright eye-watering, but rents do continue to raise across the state, like many other parts of the country can experience. And we're talking about high monthly rates, and those can easily gobble up a big chunk of your paycheck. While rents in the Olympia-Lacey-Tumwater area are going to be significantly different, they're still going to be a little bit of a sticker shock compared to some of the places you might be coming from, especially if it's like the Midwest or the South region. Now, if you're looking to buy in this market, be prepared to put out a pretty penny for that too. Yeah, Seattle's going to grab a lot of the headlines, and there are plenty of other hidden gems across our region that's going to offer more affordable alternatives. Take, for instance, my neck of the woods in Olympia, for example. A medium price home in Olympia is going to be around $500,000, where Seattle, it's going to be upwards of $800,000. The cool thing about buying a home in this area is Olympia kind of combines the best of both worlds. It's got a vibrant city and a downtown, but it also has a more laid-back, community-oriented vibe. So if you zoom in on Thurston County, we're talking about housing here. Now, compared to Seattle, Olympia-Lacey-Tumwater is going to be a lot more wallet friendly. And again, renting is a popular choice in Thurston County, especially for those who prefer flexibility or aren't yet ready to commit to homeownership, aren't just quite there yet. Rental prices here can vary depending on factors like location, size, amenities, but generally they do tend to be a little bit more affordable right now compared to the larger urban centers like Seattle or Tacoma. But the main kicker here is the cost of living in Olympia is significantly lower than in Seattle. From housing, groceries, entertainment, you're definitely going to find your hard-earned dollars are going to go a little bit further here. So although you don't have a large urban center like Seattle, there are still a ton of great things about living a little bit further south down here in this region. But actually, the real beauty of living in Western Washington is you're not just limited to one city. It's really close to a bunch of other things, and you really pick the way of life. You have the freedom to explore and discover the perfect place that's going to suit your needs, your budgets, your lifestyle. Whether you want to move to Tacoma, you're still just a day trip to Portland, Seattle. With the laid-back vibes of Olympia, you can be just kind of positioned right in the middle and have kind of the best of both worlds. So all in all, if you're worried about the cost of living going to put a damper on your dreams of living in Western Washington, really don't be. Sure, it's not the cheapest place in the world. I'm not trying to say that, but with a little creativity and exploration, you're going to find that the Pacific Northwest is more than just a place to live. Next on our list, one thing a lot of people don't talk about when talking about Washington State is traffic. And right here in Olympia, while Olympia may not have the same level of congestion as its larger areas like Seattle or Tacoma, there are still some traffic considerations to keep in mind, especially if you're commuting to and from work. Navigating these areas during the week or peak hours is going to take some special consideration. One factor that's going to play a significant role in the traffic patterns is Joint Base Lewis McChord, or JBLM for short, because this is one of the largest military installations in the United States. JBLM is home to thousands of service members, civilian employees, their families, and when it comes to commuting, it does create a bit of congestion, especially at those peak hours. And that's partly due to the fact that JBLM has grown, but the infrastructure that was initially put in place by the state of Washington just wasn't there. So now they've started to plan ahead and are starting to do a ton of road work and adding different entryways to JBLM, north, south, east, and west, different entry points. They're widening interstates, just trying to relieve the congestion because they just didn't really plan well for the amount of people moving to the area. So that's created a ton of traffic. And another thing you have to know about Olympia is that most of it is going to be car dependent. And there are areas that have pretty great public transportation system, which is actually free. The problem is that those bus routes are typically going to take a lot more time than most people have to spend when they already have a car. While there are some bus routes and growing networks of bike lanes, the reality is that most people are going to rely on their vehicles to get around town, especially if they live in suburban or rural areas. There's just not a lot of stuff that you can walk to, and there really isn't a huge city center that people live. The good news is in recent years, they have had several significant initiatives to improve traffic flow and reduce the congestion in and around Olympia. These projects include widening existing roads, adding new lanes to major highways, and implementing traffic management strategies like a diamond interchange. And these are all aimed at easing bottlenecks during peak travel times. One notable example is the widening of Interstate 5. This is a main north-south artery that runs through Olympia and connects the region to neighboring cities and states. By expanding I-5 and adding carpool lanes, transportation officials have been able to increase capacity and improve the traffic flow along this critical corridor. And although there have been investments in local road infrastructure to address the specific congestion hotspots, there are still some points of contention. Also, there has been a lot of investments in local road infrastructure that's going to address specific congestion hotspots and improve connectivity between different parts of the city. These can improve and include new overpasses, intersection upgrades, synchronized traffic signals, roundabouts, widening of main arteries through the city of Olympia-Lacey-Tumwater. So it's worth noting that the road projects are part of a broader transportation strategy aimed at accommodating the region's growing population, supporting economic development, and preserving natural beauty and the quality of life to make Olympia such a desirable place to live. So while road construction, infrastructure projects are definitely going to sometimes cause temporary disruptions and delays, the long-term benefits of these investments are clear, you're going to have less time spent in traffic, safer roads for everyone, and more efficient transportation networks that keeps traffic moving forward. Here's something that you're definitely not expecting on this list, but you may have overlooked this, in that the Olympia area has a really prominent phenomenon of urban sprawl. Unlike the dense cityscapes of a larger metropolitan area like Seattle, Olympia is going to embrace a more spread out urban development pattern. This sprawl is going to extend beyond the city limits, and it's going to encompass neighboring communities like Lacey and Tumwater. So now we have these urban growth areas. As those grow, they kind of swallow up some of these county areas that used to be primary Olympia addresses. Well, now they've turned into urban growth areas. So as more people come into the area, there's less place to build. So the suburban living, continues to grow further and further out, kind of giving us this urban sprawl. So as you're driving through these areas, you're going to notice a mix of residential neighborhoods, commercial districts, and expansive green spaces. The housing landscape ranges from single family homes, they got spacious yards, to modern apartment complexes catering to different lifestyles. But while the urban sprawl does offer residents this allure of larger properties and a sense of suburban tranquility, it also presents its challenges. Commuting distances are going to be longer. This is going to contribute to more traffic congestion on major thoroughfares like the Interstate 5 and Highway 101. Also, the spread out nature of development is going to put a strain on the infrastructure and our municipality services. It's going to impact factors like transportation, utilities, public amenities. I remember 15 years ago, you could get deep from Lacey all the way to the west side in like 15 minutes. I used to say you could get anywhere from Lacey to Tumwater in as little as 12 minutes because traffic was just not that heavy, but things have changed. Now you got to plan maybe 25 minutes to get from one end of town to the other, which doesn't sound like a ton, but you do have to plan accordingly. So on top of that, if you're commuting to Seattle or you just want to take a day trip, you used to be able to just plan 60 minutes from point A to point B. Well, now it definitely can take longer depending on the time. And that's because so many people have migrated out of the city to less densely populated areas, the suburban areas like Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater. All in all, despite these challenges, Olympia area's urban sprawl is also a testament to its growing appeal, as it's just become a desirable place to live, work, and play, and we all enjoy the benefits of a diverse community. Enjoying the benefits of a diverse community, a ton of outdoor recreational opportunities, and kind of a more relaxed life compared to the larger urban centers. Balancing the expansion of urban development while preserving our region's natural beauty and quality of life, it does remain an important endeavor for the local planners and city policymakers. All right, so coming in our list is homelessness. And while Western Washington definitely has a vibrant urban center and all these scenic landscapes, it also grapples with a significant homelessness crisis, particularly in cities like Seattle, Tacoma, and Olympia. And with that being said, the sight of seeing the people that are experiencing homelessness can definitely be striking to those that aren't used to seeing it, especially in the downtown areas and public spaces. It gives off the impression that the issue is more pervasive than it might be in actual reality. Although definitely a problem, we do want to look at the actual data on the homeless population right here in Olympia. So as of the most recent point in time, this is a survey that was conducted in January 2023, the most recent one that looks at Olympia and Thurston County's total homeless population. At the time of this report, there was approximately 792 individuals experiencing houselessness, and this is actually down from 2020 when there was 835 individuals experiencing homelessness. This figure includes people living in shelters, transitional housing, and unsheltered locations like the streets, parks, vehicles. All of this in total, about 63% were classified as unsheltered, meaning they don't have access to traditional housing accommodations, while the remaining 37% were staying in emergency shelters or transitional housing programs. So I do think it is essential to put these numbers into perspective. While the homeless population can be visible, it's important we have to understand the underlying causes and complexities of houselessness. Factors such as housing affordability, mental health issues, substance abuse, systemic inequalities, these all contribute to houselessness right here in the region. So we do want to know what's being done to address the homelessness, and it's going to involve a multifaceted approach that's going to include providing shelter, access to healthcare, social services, also affordable housing options, but the scale of the issue often outpaces available resources. leading to ongoing challenges in finding sustainable solutions. And to be honest, the truth of the matter is that you will see and be exposed to homelessness in Olympia-Lacey-Tumwater, but you got to acknowledge the complexities of homelessness. So by acknowledging the complexities of homelessness, I don't think that it enables it. It does give us the ability to continue to work collaboratively to address its root causes, and communities in Western Washington are striving to help reduce homelessness. But it certainly is an issue that exists. All right, so moving on, and lastly, and in my opinion, probably one of the most surprising things about living in Washington State that you probably didn't know, or you may have just not expected, and you're going to be surprised to learn about Washington state gun laws, especially considering the state's liberal reputation. And despite this reputation, Washington is an open carry state, meaning you can legally carry a firearm in public without a permit. And this might come as a shock to those who assume that liberal states always have the most strict gun policy, the most strict laws. But in addition to an open carry state, Washington also allows concealed carry. So to carry a concealed firearm, you are going to need to obtain a concealed pistol license, the CPL, and this process is pretty straightforward. You got to be at least 21, pass a background check, and meet other certain criteria, training, etc. And what's even more surprising, despite which city you're living in, which neighborhood, you're going to find a number of gun stores throughout Western Washington. And despite the progressive values, the region has a robust market for firearms, accessories. You're going to find numerous stores offering a wide range of guns, from hunting rifles, handguns, ammunition, shooting ranges, open ranges, or state forests. So there's just a pretty open policy. On top of that, those that are living outside the city limits can shoot their gun on their own property or designated areas. You got to remember, it is essential to be aware of specific rules and regulations that govern gun ownership, and that's just going to be different state to state. For instance, background checks are required for all firearm purchases, and there's going to be certain places that are designated gun-free zones like schools or government buildings. It's also worth noting that Washington has implemented some measures to ensure responsible gun ownership, including red flag laws that are going to allow them to temporarily remove your firearm from individuals deemed to be at risk of themselves or others. And so overall, while Washington is known for its progressive stance on most issues, its gun laws reflect a balance between regulation and the rights of gun owners. This nuanced approach can be surprising for the new residents who might have these preconceived notions about the state's policies. So whether you're a gun enthusiast or you're just curious about the local laws and jurisdictions, it's important to understand that Western Washington does offer a unique blend of progressive politics and gun rights. And it's just another example of how diverse and sometimes unassuming Washington state can be. All right, so there you have it. Those are my top things that Washingtonians don't tell you about Western Washington, and I think some of those come off as a little surprising. Maybe you learn some new stuff about Washington State, but overall, it's just a really awesome place to live. And if you are planning on moving to this area, I am a licensed real estate agent in this area, and every day we do help people just like you in the Olympia-Lacey-Tumwater and surrounding areas. So feel free to hit the contact information below. You can email, we can set up a Zoom link, meet up for coffee. I'm open to help whatever you might need. So in the meantime, remember, like and subscribe so you get notifications on our channel when we drop a new video, and we'll see you next time.